Thanksgiving had been a day of family gathering. The entire group of us, probably about 20 in all, showed up to our tiny house for a feast. It was the first real holiday we'd had since my mom died. She'd died months earlier. That night, after everyone had gone, we went to bed. But we were awakened by something terrifying, something we can't explain. Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff, and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn, and...
I'm Joe.
I'm Christina.
I'm Rook.
Yes, I have two of my other adult children with me. So, our story is in 1994. Am I right on that, you guys? Is it 1994?
Yeah.
We all lived together in one tiny house in Nevada. India and Daniel, who aren't with us right now, also lived there, but they were very small. Joe and Daniel were babies. India was a toddler. And my ex-husband had also made himself sort of a apartment in the detached garage. So it was a full house. It was full of people, and it was full of all the things that people need and things that babies and toddlers need. But Rook and Christina and I were, Christina and I were adults. How old were you?
If it was 1994, I would have been 13.
Okay, so you were old enough to remember this clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go through that night and explain what happened step by step. Joe, you can ask us questions, but do not try to debunk what we're telling you until later. Okay, just do not, please, do not.
Just contain yourself.
Yes. And listeners, if you have a question or comment for any of us, we will respond and discuss it in a later episode. Okay, so first, let's set the scene. The day. It was Thanksgiving Day. I remember there were more people than ordinarily came to our house for Thanksgiving that day, probably because my mom had died, and so everyone came together. Is that how you two remember it?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, we had actually set up either multiple tables or had put wood on sawhorses or something, because we had a really, really long table set up for everybody in like the living room to make space for everyone, because otherwise there wouldn't have been enough space for everyone. Because
I didn't remember that it was Thanksgiving until you told me the other day that this happened on Thanksgiving. I thought it was spring.
No, it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I didn't even remember.
It was the night after Thanksgiving Day. So we'd had Thanksgiving Day. I do remember at one point feeling very sad because my mom had died, and I went out on the front porch and I was crying, and Jenny came out and she started crying. Actually, we probably weren't crying about my mom. We probably were crying about a movie we'd watched, which was a movie about hippies. So forget that. Just forget that.
Was it 1969?
Yeah, it was 1969. We watched 1969 and we sat on the front porch and cried.
Oh yeah, didn't we watch it like it was part of our holiday festivities, I think.
I don't know that I don't remember
any of this.
Wow.
I remember none of this.
Because we used to watch TV all together on Thanksgiving.
We did. We used to watch a movie on Thanksgiving.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't remember that at all.
Going in the morning while we were cooking, and
I don't remember that
This is
at all.
going to be great with all these different levels of memory.
wow.
Yeah, I have no memory of this.
Okay.
Did you remember till just now? Like
I didn't remember that we watched 1969
that's funny.
until she just brought it up.
But you guys don't remember watching.
Oh no, I remember watching it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
I would
not at all.
remember if
Okay.
it was that long.
Thanksgiving Day, you two, you didn't remember it was Thanksgiving. You, Rook, just like, did you know it was Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay. And Joe, you were a baby, so you don't remember it all. Okay, at the end of the day, I imagine we probably put food away and cleaned up, but I don't remember that. I don't remember any of that. But we went to bed. Joey, you being a baby, you and I slept on a futon on the living room floor. Christina, you and Daniel slept in the bedroom to the left, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel was how old?
I thought Daniel was just like newborn, but if this was Thanksgiving, he was born mid-March, so he would be like moving he was actively
Yeah, he was like crawling age.
Crawling age. I don't remember that.
Oh, funny. Rook, you slept in the other bedroom, and was India in with you?
She was not sleeping in with me. I'm not sure where she had fallen asleep because she had a bed in Christina's room, but she woke up and for some reason came to my room.
Okay, I don't remember that.
Well, I do because she had woken me up right
This
before
might be
it happened.
This might be a total wash because this is.
I don't remember that either.
I don't remember that at all.
Well, why would you remember it? It was my experience. You weren't in my room.
Okay, so what woke me up was a sound. It was a loud sound. I would liken it to the sound of someone if they had a handful of marbles and they threw them into a bathtub and they started swirling around the bathtub. A rattling, rolling, loud, echoey, super loud sound. And I thought, what the hell is India doing? Because she was like 3 years old?
2.
No, because
She was
almost
3.
1.
No, she was born in 1991. In 1994, she would have been.
She turned 3.
you're
Yeah,
right.
she turned 3 in April.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Family
forget she's
dynamics.
born in the spring.
Okay, so I yelled out, what the hell is India doing? Somebody stop her.
Poor child. So I was woken up by India knocking on my door, and I will never find out why because she certainly doesn't remember now as an adult. But she knocked on my door and she was crying, and so I got up and I opened the door and was like, "Why did you come to me?" And then we heard the same noise that you described, just like in my head. I was picturing like a cat scrambling on like porcelain or something, just this scratching, something hard on something echoey. And India leapt from the ground into my arms. And even at that age, I was like 5'9", so it was quite a leap. And so I had my arms full of this child when I hear you yelling about India.
Okay, Christina.
Did the noise start when you opened the door? Or you just started hearing it?
It was, I think it was like a second after I opened the door because I had enough time to ask her, what? Like, why did you come
That's
to me?
interesting, because that would have been the precise time you woke up then, if it was that loud.
I don't know. I do want to point out, as we've already demonstrated, that our memories are going to differ of this because that's how memories work. So, Christina, did I wake you up or did something else wake you up?
It was the sound of what was like marbles in a bathtub. This rolling, echoey, vibrating noise. And that's what woke me up.
In that bedroom, did you have the head of the bed against the wall that was shared with the bathroom? So it was
And the bathtub was right there.
So that would make sense that you would think that too. And
And I could feel the rumbling. I
yes,
remember
I could
that.
feel the rumbling too, but it was not coming from the bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the opposite side of the bathroom, and I was not near that wall.
So then we ended up all coming out and standing in the dining room area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as I recall, it was so loud, we were having to raise our voices to talk to one another. Does that sound right to you too?
That was my experience.
That was
Yes.
my experience.
I do have to point out, though, since that time, there have been at least 3 other situations, where under extreme stress, I felt like there was a super loud noise.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's why I'm not sure if that was I was actually hearing something or if it was like the anxiety and I felt roaring in my head.
yeah, so up until when your cat got her head stuck in the counter, and my memory of it, because I was shouting because there was this loud noise in my head. There was no noise outside of my head. It was all in my head. So it could be that there wasn't really that loud of a noise, or I was just shouting and you guys were probably standing there looking at me like I was crazy. So was the noise still going on at that point as far as you're concerned, Christina?
As far as I remember it, yeah.
And you, Rook?
I'm not sure if it was that noise or just the roaring noise. Again,
Yeah, there was a roaring, and it almost felt like, I don't know if it was actual shaking, but it seemed like everything was shaking. It seemed like the noise was so loud, it was everywhere.
like in retrospect, having now been near like a tornado, I would liken it to that kind of.
You've been near a tornado?
near, not in a tornado, near. There was one that came through Earl that like spun the
that's-
sign around.
Yeah.
So for those that have watched the Polar Express, that's, if I look back on it and I think about what the sound would be, what the rumbling would be, and no one else hears it but you do, that's what because I liken everything to a movie.
Okay,
And
I'm
so
not familiar with the Polar Express. Can you explain that to me?
It's one of those things that you know it when you hear it. but
you know when you
can't
hear it,
really
like if you
describe
watch the movie, and I
but
don't
in
know
the
how to
movie,
explain.
Is it like the wind blowing or something? That's the
No,
sound?
it's the rumbling of the train, the
Oh,
Polar
okay.
Express coming up, and the children hear it, but the adults do not. The children are aware; they feel the vibration, they
It's
hear the
almost
rumble.
like a sub audible thing. Yes,
And then when
I would agree with you.
And then when it shows up, and then the kids and the parents the adults are all oblivious to it, and it's just this whole, and the sound effects in the movie. Whenever I watch it, and I watch it every year, it always makes me think of
Oh.
that same
Interesting.
feeling and vibration and noise.
Well, I mean, tornado, train, all of these things, that's actually a pretty similar description of.
So when you describe it as marbles in a bathtub, was it like cyclical? Was it?
Yes, it
Yeah, I think
felt
so.
it felt like something spinning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like it would go in and come out. And,
Yes, yeah, there was like
I
a.
think so. Because that was I was woken out of a sound sleep, and that was what my thought was. Although why? I have personally never thrown marbles in a bathtub, nor have I, as far
I
as
can
I know.
totally picture that sound.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
It's you can hear that in your head when
Yeah.
you hear that description.
Yeah.
And that is what it was like.
After we gathered in the dining room / living room area, and we were kind of by the phone. I think the phone was on that little short wall between the kitchen and I think we were standing right there. And then at some point, somebody realized Daniel was still in the bedroom. Joey was with me, India was with us, Daniel was still in the bedroom. And okay, so who? And I'm thinking it was me, but this might be a false memory. Who went into the bathroom to look in the tub?
You went Christina went into the bathroom.
I went into the bathroom, and it happened before we discussed the fact that I left Daniel in the bedroom.
And I believe that I went into the bedroom after Daniel, either while you were in the bathroom or right after you came out.
No, something happened in the bathroom. What happened in the bathroom?
So it happened twice. So when I went into the bathroom, I don't know, because it's a teeny bathroom, there's no reason for me to have swung the door shut, but the door shut behind me, and it was like it would not open. And there was nothing in the tub. There was nothing
Was
out of the
sound
ordinary.
louder in there?
I don't remember if the sound was still happening or if it had gone away, but I know that there was still that like roaring vibration. Like the house was rumbling at that point. It
Yeah.
felt like an earthquake.
Yeah.
Like something was going on. And the door wouldn't open, and then all of a sudden the door opened. And I don't remember if I shouted or not. I know when I went into the bedroom and it happened again, I shouted, but the door opened, and then I came out, and then I think we determined we were going to leave. Go ahead, Bernard.
The bedroom door tried to shut behind you.
Yes, when I went in
That's
to
why
get,
why I started to go in there. That's,
Yes, 'cause
that is
then-
the order of the events. Now I remember.
we were going to leave, and then the horrible mother that I am, wait, my baby is in the bedroom. I have to go back for him. And so I went back for Daniel, and it felt like even like
It
you
was
couldn't
like it
walk.
was hard, like you're walking
Yeah.
on a boat or something
And
moving.
I went to go into the bedroom, and the door went to do the same thing that it did on the bathroom.
Yeah, and I think that I was like in the doorway,
Yeah.
like with my arms
Yeah.
stretched out.
And
And Joe, during this, we're shouting at one another because it is absolutely, we have no idea what's going on. We were terrified. So eventually, Rook, did you get Daniel in your arms to get him out of the room, or did you, Christina? Okay, so we got Daniel out,
Everybody had a child. I had India.
and I
you
went
must
to
have had Joey.
Yes, and I went to the front door, and it wouldn't open. And I tried, and it would not open.
Is that
in
when we?
my memory, the light went off on the porch.
And that could be too. I don't
don't recall that, but that
sounds
sounds-
familiar. I wouldn't be surprised. So then, our choice was to go out the back door, which was completely pitch black out there, and Why didn't I have my purse or my keys? I had a car. What the hell?
Was the Yugo broken down? Because Cook came and picked us up.
I was driving the Yugo.
You were driving the Yugo, and it was parked actually in the
I don't
driveway.
think all of us would have fit in the Yugo.
We wouldn't have
It would
fit.
be like a clown car.
We would have.
That's
put
a
kids,
lot of people.
We would have put kids in our lap, but I think that the Yugo, it either was broken down or there was something that the Yugo was not usable, and so you called Cook.
I called Cook.
And when she pulled up, and we all went running, screaming out
Out the back door and got in her car and
to
went
her
to
car.
our house.
So
I remember another aspect of it before we got outside was we were huddled in the kitchen while you were calling.
Yes.
And that was when a new sound started, and that was like a rattling of all of the cupboards.
Yes,
I don't remember
I do
that.
remember that.
wait, so you ran into the bedroom to get Daniel. The door started shut. You ran to the door.
You can say our names because we.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And then everyone ran to the front
Before,
door.
okay, I went to the front door, so they came out. It was clear what had happened. She'd been trying to go through the door. The whole thing got Daniel. I went to the front door to open it. The door would not open. And possibly, the light went out on the front porch. So then maybe we went to the kitchen, and that's why I called Cook, because we were afraid to go.
We might have, not gone back into the living room where you would have had your purse, because why would you have grabbed your purse when you got up? Yeah, so
Exactly.
we went away from the living room.
Right.
And we didn't want to go back in there
So-
because the light had gone off.
So we didn't want to go. We were now forced into the kitchen area, and now something's happening in the kitchen. Apparently, I don't remember that, but I trust you both. And our only choice was to get out. And I'm thinking it was probably like 1 or 2 in the morning.
I thought
think it was like 3.
I thought it was 3.
Yeah, because I think
Yeah.
we talked about it was the witching hour.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is important or not, but the bathroom door swung inward
Toward the tub.
towards the tub. And so when I was in, I would have been pulling the door towards me in the bathroom. The bedroom door swung inward towards the outer wall, which lined with the living room and front door. And so to go in the bedroom, if a door swung shut, again, it would have been me pulling it inward to get. And I don't know if that makes any difference, but so this is not like you're pushing against the door, you're pulling
Right.
against the door to try and get it to
Right,
open.
right.
And you guys were on the outside of the bathroom door trying to get it open.
Oh my God, it was just so terrifying.
Well, so Brooke, you started to say something about the cabinets.
Yes. So when we were in the kitchen, either waiting for Cook or you were on the phone with Cook, I remember hearing like rattling, like the cabinet doors were like being moved, like the other sounds of movement, and then it had come into the kitchen with us, as though like imagine. And I had at the time I thought, well, maybe it's just like India, she's a little kid and but it was around us. It wasn't possible.
Can
She was
you
like right there with me.
say whether it just started or you walked into it?
It seemed like it started while we were in there.
Although it could have been going on
Yeah,
because
there
there
were
was
other
we
things
were
distracting.
surrounded, we were encompassed by noise.
And the kitchen is extremely small.
Yes.
And the only cupboards, again, were on an outer wall where the sink and a
It was
window.
just a tiny little galley kitchen.
Yeah, just very, very small. So,
And you were all huddled in there.
yeah, to go out
Yeah,
the back.
waiting for
yeah,
Cook.
yeah,
Yeah.
to go out the back door.
And then we ran.
Do you
when she
remember
pulled
what
up.
you said to her?
I don't remember. I do not remember, but I remember seeing her car pulling up and feeling such intense relief and running out and all of us getting in her car. And I don't remember anything. I remember being at her house, just the knowledge, kind of like it was early in the morning type of thing, but I don't remember anything that we talked about, anything we did until it was light and she brought us home. So the next day, well, it was the same day,
It was
but
a
later,
few hours later.
we came home and let's talk about what we found. Let's talk about the evidence that we saw in our house.
So there was nothing happening once you got back.
So later that morning, after it got light, Cook took us back to our house and we walked inside And what we saw was physical proof of what had happened. Christina, what did you notice?
I don't know if it was pointed out to me. I mean, like, this is where my memory gets kind of, and obviously my memory was foggy already because I didn't know it was Thanksgiving night. There was a mark on the wall and there were papers that were scattered, but I don't really remember.
I'll tell. This is what my memory is of the mark on the wall. There were photographs of, I think it was you and maybe kids, I don't know. They were in frames that had like a felt backing on them, and the mark was a circular mark as if you had spun it on its nail, pushing really hard and spun it to make that mark on the plaster wall, and then the pictures were on the floor.
As I recall, they were not just on the floor, but you had a computer in that corner,
Yes.
and the pictures were tucked underneath
Across the
tables
room.
for,
Yeah.
For the computer.
Yeah, they were across the
That they
room. They
were-
were upside down.
They,
Yeah,
they,
that's
would,
right.
they wouldn't have just fallen there. They had to be slipped
And then there
under.
was something, there was a clear plastic box that had a yellow rose, dried yellow rose in it, that I had taken from a bouquet that had been in the room where my mother died. And I'd taken that rose out and I'd put it in this box and I'd been saving it. And there was something about that, and I don't remember what it was, but there was something happened to that box and the flower. I don't remember what it was. And there were papers scattered. Was there anything else? I don't remember there being, like, there weren't dishes broken in the cupboards.
No. I checked in the bathroom to see if there was anything to see in the light of day. I think that was before we noticed the pictures, and there was nothing in there. Doors were opening and shutting normally.
Yeah,
That's how I recall.
Yeah.
Everything looked, other than, we had all jumped up and ran out,
Yeah, yeah, so that, like, the futon was still on the floor and the,
Yeah.
Was it only a few of the pictures, or
It
was
was
it
three.
three of
Three
There were
pictures.
three pictures.
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, I believe it was a birth announcement for one of your children. One of Christina's
It was
children.
for India.
India. And
The
then,
one with her handprints and
yeah, and then there was one associated with Daniel.
yes,
Was it a picture of him or was it a birth announcement of him?
that was
as
a
well?
picture.
And
I
then
remember which picture.
I think it was your diploma.
That is where I'm foggy because I thought it was the picture of Daniel and India and I that I had taken at Walmart.
Maybe
right
that's
after
what it
he
was, but
born.
it was definitely, there was something associated with India alone, Daniel alone, and then either you or you and your kids.
Yeah, I thought it was the picture,
But it was definitely,
And that
it
was
was
the one that-
your little,
and that was the one
Family
that was
tree.
over. That's how I remember.
There were papers that were also shoved underneath those wires, papers that had been on the desk, as though some tremendous wind. Because it was more than just the house got shook. Because the house getting shaken wouldn't have done those things. So I'm not going to go into my theories of what I think happened, but the doors all worked, everything worked,
the light?
the lights worked.
Now, I don't know if this is something that needs to be said now or has no relevance or you would want to cut out, but for weeks before that, the telephone would ring and it would be the sound of a fax machine when
Oh,
you
yeah.
answered it. And there'd be no one there. You'd pick it up, you'd say hello, and it'd be that like a fax machine. And after this night, after this happened, it stopped. It didn't happen again
Yeah, I forgot about
until we moved
To Wisconsin.
To Wisconsin.
Yeah, yeah. I think we touched on that in the episode about communication with the dead through electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is right. I forgot about that. So that's pretty much. Can you think of anything else you want to talk about that happened that night, or how it affected you?
well, I don't know if I saw movement through the windows or if it was just, my 13-year-old imagination, but I had the feeling as though there was something outside.
I had that feeling too. Yeah, and that it was almost pressing on the house.
Yeah, like it was, when something implodes, like that was the
Yeah.
feeling,
Yeah.
and that was that pressurized
Yeah.
rumbling.
Yeah, the
inside.
pressurized, when you were talking about it, when you were in the bathroom, had that sensation. It felt like it was almost pressure on my head too. It was just so intense. It was It was actually one of the most intense things I've ever experienced in my life. And clearly, this is not something that we're not the kind of people to be saying, oh yeah, Poltergeist or whatever, you know. Obviously, we're not having experiences like that on a regular basis. Have you ever had an experience similar to that, Christina, in your life?
That same sensation of feelings, yes. Not the same circumstances or the same physical, because I'm going to say it's physical because to me it was absolutely physically happening around me. So not that same stuff, but the feeling of the pressurized, the rumbling in my head, the feeling of what, you know, the situation I was in, of all of that other stuff, and feeling like, what is causing this? Yes, I have experienced that.
Before or after? So before that time or since that time?
Since that time.
Okay. How about you, Rook?
No. I have had a similar feeling of roaring panic, but not anything inexplicable like that.
Okay. Now, Joe, here's something I'm going to bring up, because although you have no memory of this event, you were there. And whether or not you can remember this, you were in my arms, a
21-month-old.
You are so much better at math than me.
she remembers that stuff all the time.
Well, if he was born in mid-February and this was Thanksgiving, and he was turning 2 in February, so 21 months old.
The people, your people around you were screaming and running from room to room and fled in the middle of the night. And even though you may not remember this happening, do you think that event, can you think of any way that might have affected you throughout your life?
Well, I think very, very early childhood trauma can affect things, but it's very general, you know? Like you might then be more likely to panic or something. Yeah, but I just
or less likely to form childhood memories. That is another really common thing.
Okay. I don't form very good memories in general.
So there you go. Lasting
trauma. It all comes down to that.
So, but you saying that also makes me wonder, how did India and Daniel behave?
Daniel would have been 8 months old then. If he was born in March,
Presumably they'd be, so me, Daniel,
I don't remember.
India all would be crying.
I don't remember anybody crying.
India was not crying. She was shaking with fear, and I held her for most of it, but she did not cry.
I think the way kids react to things, they cry if they think somebody can save them, but because we were screaming, they would probably realize that we cannot save them.
Which is a completely natural response. Think about a baby animal crying for its mother because it's hungry versus a baby animal hiding from a predator.
As the predator kills its mother.
Yes, that's the mother's job.
So another...
Gee, that's grand.
Another thing is, I might not be able to remember that, but if I heard the sound, it might have implanted itself at some level in my brain. And so I can say, potentially, that, that idea of that sound makes so much sense. Like, I can perfectly imagine it. Well, I was there.
You were there. We were all there. Okay, in our next episode, we're going to discuss the steps we took to try and figure out what the hell happened. And I think you, Joe, will probably have some questions or interjections about that. But I think we all can agree that was a terrifying night. No matter what it was a terrifying night. Our contact information is in the show notes. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, send it to us. And Joe wants me to remind you that if you text us or message us or comment with anything having to do with this, we will respond in a later episode. Is that right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run.